Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about learning on the job. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, do you think that someone can become a good developer without investing their free time for learning new things and reflecting on work and instead block out time for it during work? And is it reasonable to expect a company to be okay with this in your opinion? Well, I would say no. So I usually tell managers or so forth because these days I rub shoulders with managers as well as software developers, and I usually say to them, don't invest in like a big payment plan or something like that for the learning platforms. So I believe that you should have a learning opportunity. You should definitely have something, as I've said in another video, I recall I mentioned that having like Udemy courses or Pluralsight or whatever platform you're using is it's a good perk. It's something that you can mention in a recruitment situation, and for the people who really care about sort of that sort of stuff, they will definitely jump on that. But you shouldn't have a lot of slots. You should do an on case by case basis, and because basically, guys, what always happens. This is the reason why nobody shows up to your hackathon unless you force them. Uh, Most software developers, they're more focused on their work, on their story, their ticket, the thing that they are doing. That's the thing that they are focusing on. In some cases, it is because they don't care about the other thing that you're talking about, like learning and so forth. Like they're complacent or not interested, call it whatever you want. And in many cases, it's just that you're in a mindset at that moment. I know it myself, and I think that every single software developer can relate to that. Sometimes you lie awake at night thinking about the thing you're working on at work, or the bug that you're dealing with, or something like that. Your mind is occupied with whatever task or story that you are working on at this moment. And that is something that makes it very difficult, and especially if you have other factors like product owners and deadlines and pressure and you know crunch modes and all this good stuff coming your way. It makes it difficult for you to find the time or have like an interest in learning. Even if you get it on the job, it's hard to just find the time in many cases. And so what I usually tell people is that I have my own philosophy for how to learn on the job, or the way that I try to learn, because learning in my spare time, that's something that I do. I experiment and things like that, but that's just me. That's because I think that it's enjoyable. But I can tell you that the bulk of my learning is not happening per se in my free time. It is happening on the job. And so the strategy that I have always adopted is twofold. First and foremost, I make sure that I have every 6 months, I have a reminder on my calendar in my phone that pings me and asks me, are you where you should be? Basically, are you where you should be? And then I take those few minutes and I reflect, am I still learning things at this specific place of work? Is there something that I'm missing out, or like am I just doing the same exact things that I've always been doing that I know how to do? Or am I getting something here that is worthwhile for furthering my own education? And then the second thing is that I always tell people, if you want to get really good at something, make it your job. And in the context of a career, that means, if you're a master of one thing, like say front end, and you really, really know that stuff, then maybe it's, and you want to expand even further, then maybe looking at another area is the way to go, and not going through, deeper on specific front end or back end or whichever you're using, right? You might want to broaden yourself a little bit. In the context of a team or at a specific company, picking the right stories is what I do. Because if I'm going to learn how to do certain things, sometimes it's better to just, as I like to say, like for me, it's really, really difficult to get motivated to do a hobby project about nothing that nobody, there's no stakes. There are no stakes at all. Like I always stop after a little while when I'm doing a project that is only for myself, because I know I can just leave it, right? But if I'm doing a serious hobby project, I try to, like, this is what I've learned about myself at the very least, I try to make it more serious than that. So if I'm making nowadays something that I thought will be pretty cool that is just for me, I make sure that it's available to other people, and then I try to maintain it a little bit. Even if I'm not as serious as the really big open source projects, I try to think the same way, that there are stakes here, because I need those stakes to feel motivated to go and just continue doing the work. And the same thing goes for my stories. So I keep a lookout for stories that I know will evolve me, will put me in a position where I have to learn something or I have to figure something out that I'm not 100% sure about. Classic one is, let's say that you're new at the job or something like that, and let's say you're a backend developer or something like that. Maybe pick up a few stories related to fixing the pipelines, CI/CD stuff. Or maybe there's 100 microservices and there are a few microservices you've never touched, and there's this other guy who always does it. Maybe you pick it up this time, so you get a little bit of domain knowledge and things like that, that you should be doing by the by, even if it's not for learning purposes, but that's another video. So that's the way I suggest that you handle it, because it's really, trust me guys, you're never going to get really, really good at some topic by getting what like an average company gives you, maybe 1 to 2 hours a week tops, I would say, if you're lucky. It's very, very rare that companies have more than that. They have Learning Fridays and like these different initiatives, but for the most part it's sort of impossible to gather more time than that, and that is just woefully too little time, I argue, to learn anything besides like basic things. If you want to get really good at the thing, you need more practice. You can sort of think of it as well, how much time and effort did you have to spend to get good at programming, for example, and be able to have a job and so forth. So if you want to get your skills to that sort of level, you sort of have to put in more time. You probably figure it out yourself that you're going to have to put in some more time than that token time that the company gives you. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way that I usually handle learning on the job versus learning by myself and stuff like that is really down to what options do I have at the place of work. As I said, there's always two things I ask myself. Am I in the right company? Because if I'm in a company where I'm not doing the things that I want to learn about, that's not a good thing, because then basically I have to switch jobs, so I have to take some other role within the same organization to get to do things that are actually the stuff that I want to learn about how to and to get better at. And that is my biggest tip to you guys. Don't fall into this trap unless you really, really love your company and every coworker there is like family. Don't get into the trap of getting too complacent. It is a good idea for you to at least have 1 or 2 jobs. Like just take it from me, guys. It's usually very rare that you will get true mastership of, if that is what you're looking for, of course, within software development or any craft whatsoever, if you're just like doing your 9 to 5 in exactly the same way at exactly the same company for the rest of your career. It can happen if you have a very dynamic environment, if you're working like with an agency or something where you have a lot of different projects, but even in such a scenario you're probably not going to learn large scale development. So you have to really think about this from a holistic perspective. Remember that there are many ways to write software, many different tools, many different styles of like how big are the companies and archetypes and so forth. So it's a good idea to think a little bit about your positioning and like what roles you actually have. And then when you're in a team or you're at the job or you're doing something, try to make sure that you keep an eye out for the sort of projects where you will learn something from completing this. If it's always the same thing, you're always picking the easiest stuff, then yeah, you're never going to learn much. And trust me, at least that's what I believe. Having a company give you like Udacity courses and stuff like that, that's a really nice perk, and you might be able to take some time to do these things because you find them interesting. I certainly do, and I learn things from them. But to get that real mastership, you're going to have some hands-on learning, and that is why I recommend those 2 ways of dealing with it. Number 1, make sure that you ask yourself if you have the right job. Number 2, make sure that you're picking up work that furthers your understanding of the area you want to get good at. Have a great day.